In all this time making videos, my passion has always been diving into the guts of the games we love to bring you the secrets and mysteries that encapsulate their very core. And when it comes to Genshin Impact, there's a considerable void of that kind of content. So we have a real adventure ahead of us with this new section, in which we will dig into the most interesting facts about Genshin from a different point of view. I hope you're as excited as I am, so let's start with this. If you are an experienced adventurer, you've probably already noticed how many aspects of the game are inspired by cultural and historical elements of the real world. And one that has stood out to me in particular is the characters, more specifically, their names. You find unexpected, original, and quite insightful references to the characters' roots in them, like Bennett, who's named after an injury. Bennett's fracture is an intra-articular fracture of the base of the first metacarpal bone, in other words, a thumb injury. Now you get what the thumb of his burst is all about, as it's well known for healing, but if a character's health is higher than 70%, instead of healing, it grants an attack bonus as a reflection of a wound that, even if it doesn't heal at 100% and it leaves a scar, pushes you to be better. Curious origin is not limited to his burst and permeates the very heart of the character, just like someone who suffers an injury but keeps going. Bennett doesn't have the best of luck, but he never gives up. He sticks to a positive attitude even when everything goes wrong. Bennett is the only remaining member of his adventure team, so the concept of fracture could also represent the breakup of his original team. I don't usually ask for likes on these videos, but there won't be many more natural opportunities to do so than with a character based entirely on a thumbs up. So do like Bennett and share a little bit of positivity in these turbulent times by leaving a like and subscribing. Another quite more evident but no less fascinating example involves Jean and Barbara. Those sisters were separated during their childhood. Barbara went with their father and joined the Mondstadt Church, while Jean went with their mother and joined the Knights of Favonius. The latter could be clearly inspired by Jeanne d'Arc, a legendary historical figure who carried the whole nation on her back. But it's not like Hoyoverse was trying to hide this inspiration. Her design already makes it quite obvious, and the references are constant, as when she prays to Barbados, emulating the mythical iconography of Jean talking to God. As one of France's most iconic historical figures, you might think Fontaine would be a more appropriate nation for her, but the game actually mentions that her father comes from Fontaine, so somehow the hydro blood of the nation of justice does run through her veins. At the end of the day, Jeanne d'Arc is an eternal symbol of the struggle for freedom, so it was a matter of fate that she ended up being the ultimate figure of both Nemo and Mondstadt. Her sister, Barbara, developed a closer affinity to Hydro, working in the clergy as a deaconess of the Church of Favonius. She could apparently take a path opposite to that of her older sister, but in fact they complement each other, because in this religious context, she could be based on Saint Barbara, patron saint of artillerymen, and by extension, of all professions that involve explosives and fire. That's where her talent for healing with Hydro comes from. Aside from the names, the historical and cultural origins of Teyvat itself are much more evident, as each nation is inspired by a real-world location, whether modern or historical. This inspiration goes to surprisingly deep levels, and their archons also reflect an archetype of these locations. I'm sure that by now most of you are aware of these origins, but let's take a quick look at them from a new point of view for anyone who's not yet familiar familiar with them. Mondstadt has its roots in medieval Europe, where troubadours sang about knights, maidens, and dragons. Its architecture is very reminiscent of Germany, with hints from the region of Bavaria, with windmills, vineyards, and beer. Its vision of freedom is well connected with the spirit of European Romanticism, where art, nature, and personal freedom were the main protagonists, with its hymn, Let the Wind Lead, as a tribute to the unwavering strength of the human soul. The cult of Barbados in these lands also evokes echoes of European paganism, where nature was considered sacred. Liu is an ode to ancient China, and its role throughout history and up to the present day as a major trading center. Its ports is reminiscent of Guangzhou, one of the most important economic centers in history, and its status as the nation of contracts reflects traditional Confucian values, order, loyalty, and respect. The influence of the country's natural landscapes is also quite evident. Liyue's mountains seems drawn directly from Chinese ink paintings, depicting not just the mere appearance, but the soul of nature. Its archon, Zhang Li, is not only an undercover tour guide, but also the consultant of a funeral parlor. The god of money working in a funeral parlor in China. To be honest, I can't think of anything closer to infinite money than that. Genshin is still a Chinese IP, an infinite money generating machine, and a graveyard for wallets. Could Morax be the incarnation of the Hoyoverse bosses in the game? Inazuma encapsulates feudal Japan with its castles, samurai, and insular design, reminiscent of the Japanese archipelago. It's the nation of eternity, a reflection of how Japan has preserved its identity over the centuries, characterized throughout history by its strong seclusion and hermeticism to preserve its own internal culture. Sumeru, as the cradle of knowledge, is based on the civilizations that created the first libraries, alphabets, and astronomical maps. Its main inspiration, as its name indicates, is found in the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, who saw wisdom as a gift from the gods, ergo Nahida, but it also has a strong influence from ancient Egypt, with its desert landscapes and the scholars of the academia resembling Egyptian scribes, including touches of Mesopotamian and Persian architecture in its palace, and a truly exotic fauna and flora as tribute to the natural treasures of the Middle East. The hierarchical academic system and its tensions are also quite reminiscent of how in those cultures wisdom was worshipped, but always with a touch of political intrigue. We all know that universities are for drama and gossip. Fontaine blends the glamour of France with the elegance of Italy, drawing a lot of inspiration from the Renaissance as an era of artistic, cultural, and technological innovations. The nation's love for justice could be related to the French Revolution and its maxim. Its aquatic aesthetic and fascination with art are a tribute to the Belle Epoque, when Paris was the cultural center of the world. This concept of justice that moves Fontaine is quite particular because in this nation we also meet an interesting version of the mafia. A curious irony for the nation of justice. Maybe they were meant to reflect those who seek justice in an alternative way, acting on the fringes of the law, because at the same time, the official justice system is presented as nothing more than a pantomime, a production designed more for show than for the proper functioning of society. Nedlam brings together the passion and strength of Mesoamerican cultures with hints of the African warrior tribes. Its connection with fire is reminiscent of the volcanic lands of Central America, where fire was a symbol of rebirth and power. We talked in depth about the history and origins of the nation in the previous video, so check it later if you're curious about it. Closing the curtain from Russia with love, the mysterious Nesnaya would be a priori inspired by Russia, and it's going to stay a secret completely hidden in the snow until we have the chance to see what really happens there, but its gelid weather reflects a coldness that could also be present in the philosophy of its goddess, as it's speculated that it could be the nation of love, and if so, the Tsaritsa could show us a vision of love that, as usual, will break the mold. The Fatui Harbingers themselves are chess pieces that, to some extent, correspond to different approaches to love, from the purest to the most twisted and deranged. As the end point of our journey, perhaps it could be the opposite of Mondstadt where we started. After all, Barbados was also known for his deep love for humanity, and he expressed this love by giving freedom to his people, allowing them to flourish in their own way. Maybe Snezhnaya would be based in the Russia of the Tsars, and the Tsaritsa would represent the opposite vision of love, an overprotective one that leads her to gather the Gnosis, to further the Rizal at Teyvat and protect humanity from an external danger that the rest of the world doesn't even realize exists, as it has been theorized many times that Teyvat could be but a speck of dust in an immense universe plagued by threats that are on an unimaginable scale of power if we compare them to the characters we have seen so far. Maybe the Heavenly Principles had an ideology similar to the Tsaritsas, and it was for the sake of humanity itself that they punished those who wanted to know more than what they should, like the fallen kingdom of Khaenri'ah, which, like the rest of nations, also has been influenced by all those stories of civilizations destroyed due to human greed of endless development to the point of pretending to challenge the gods. Freedom, contracts, eternity, wisdom, justice, war, and love. What concept could then drive the fallen Khaenri'ah? It could be death, which could bring it even closer to that deep connection with Snezhnaya. After all, love and death are two sides of the same coin. They are intertwined in such a way that one is meaningless without the other. Have you seen any horses in Teyvat? Well, I haven't. Not a single one. This was quite shocking to me at first, because with Mondstadt being a retelling of chivalry nobles and the Knights of Favonius as its ultimate institution, it seems like a joke that you can't see a single equine around. There's even an item called horsetail, but no matter how much you explore, you won't find a single one, unless you have some mental issues like me and a little bit of adrenaline rush leads you to climb on a random statue to see the scenery in the middle of the night, in the heart of Mondstadt. If you climb the Anemo Archon statue at night, turn down the music in the game settings, turn up the sound effects, and listen very carefully, you may hear something in the distance that sounds like the neighing of a horse. But where does that sound come from if there are no horses to be found here? Well, that's not the end of it. On the most silent nights, you can also hear something even more disturbing in Mondstadt, almost imperceptible cries and sobs of a woman, as if they were distant echoes. To make it even more ominous, the streets are completely deserted, except for the occasional Favonius knight on patrol. So what could be causing these sounds? Could it be the winds of Barbados, carrying with it memories of a turbulent past? Perhaps the echoes of ancient wars that left scars on Mondstadt history? There have been a lot of rumors about Benti being much more important than what it seems at first glance. It has been said that he could be an even stronger entity and be connected to the concept of time, which would reinforce the theory that the winds of Mondstadt are capable of carrying echoes, reminiscence of other epochs and timelines. And and maybe one of them does have horses. But that's all for this first edition of Genshin Interesting Facts and Trivia, a section that will hopefully be as successful as the one in my Pokemon channel. Leave a like and share the video with other fans of the game so we can build a little space in this community. Remember to follow me on social media where I'm also starting to upload my drawings of Genshin, and if you're still hungry for more, take a look at the video on screen with a complete explanation of the history of Natlan. Be nice!